It's gonna be a football game tonight now. No doubt. It's gonna be a football game here. Okay. I done been here before. All right, let's go, baby.
Play clock at 5. Pass is intercepted at the goal line by Malcolm Butler. Unreal.
And the Ohio State Buckeyes are the first national champions of the playoff era.
Ladies and gentlemen, football to football.
Your host, Sean Garmer, Gary Vaughn, and Randy Isbell.
All right. Well, if you're listening to us just now, I apologize. We had an error because sometimes this happens where you try to do too many things at once and the computer says, nope, you're not doing it. I'm shutting down.
Or in the case of Sean's computer, you try to do one thing.
No, it does this sometimes when I'm trying to like put on these Facebook pages that we're going on right now, and I was trying to get too cute with putting in certain things, and yeah.
Yeah. I just want to let everybody know we will start a donation box for a second laptop for Sean so he can have one for podcast and one for doing all his research.
I'm not doing research right now.
Or putting things in Twitter and Facebook. That way he can keep we can keep the feed and the stream going clean. But yeah, I'm glad to be here, guys. It was sad that we missed, last night, but Randy was tired. We all get tired sometimes, so it happened. But here we are, and we're ready to talk about some games. So I'm excited.
I don't know what happened. I fell asleep. I crashed pretty hard. Did I dream that I was the only person in the world to pick the Saints to win, or?
You know what?
You were.
Yeah.
Okay. You were. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't a dream that actually I called something right for once.
Yeah. Well, the Atlanta Falcons fans are still hoping it's a dream. I think they still believe they're on Elm Street, but nope, it's true. And yes, Randy gets all the credit for that. Wow. I mean, I'll be honest with you, Randy. Why do we switch roles here? You're getting all these NFL games right. I'm getting a lot of these college games. Oh no, I'm kind of failing it at this point, but I'm doing pretty well still. Our kind of reversed here. Our roles are.
Yeah, that's weird. But that being said, Gary and I did do a full Falcons Saints TNF post game on Ravel last night. So we're not going to go through the whole game and all that stuff tonight. It's a day later. It's even older than it is when we normally do the show. It's kind of pointless for us to do it in full right now. So if you want to listen to us talk about 20 minutes about the whole game, all the stuff that could have been the reason why somebody lost or somebody won or whatever, go to our Ravel page, search WTM Network on Ravel.tv, or go download the Ravel TV app on your iPhone or Android or tablet or whatever the hell, and find us there, and you can listen to it if you want to. I'm just going to ask a couple questions here, and we're going to move on to actually doing the NFL Week 6 preview. Now, Randy, is this more of a case of Atlanta not being prepared, maybe not taking New Orleans seriously because of how bad they have been? The game against the Cowboys notwithstanding. Or was it just a case where the Saints were motivated? They brought up the whole stuff about Steve Gleason a lot, the whole thing about Katrina a lot. It seemed like this was the anniversary of everything all rolled up into one, and it was kind of motivating the Saints.
They brought up Katrina anymore. I'm glad I kind of wasn't able to watch much of this game because just stop it. But I guess I'll correct one thing. I don't think Atlanta was taking New Orleans lightly. Listen, this is a professional football team. It is in your division. You never take these kind of games lightly. But the fact is, and I've been a proclaimer of this when I was a guest on your podcast the last couple of years, it's home team on Thursday night syndrome. It's basically on Sunday, like if you're playing on Sunday and you have a full week, you travel on what is a rest day anyways. You usually travel on a Saturday. So nobody's practicing then. So you're practicing the same amount of time as the team that's at home. On Thursday night, you don't get that luxury. You travel on a Wednesday, which the home team gets to practice on. So you basically lose a day of practice and a day of prep time that the other team gets. So you usually come in a little off your game, and unless you are far superior, it's going to affect you. And if it affected Atlanta yesterday, and you could definitely tell that they made some terrible mental mistakes that completely cost them the game. And give credit to New Orleans, they took advantage. Drew Brees played very well. Benjamin Watson stepped out as the new tight end of choice. And Mark Ingram, even though he couldn't run anytime he got near that end zone, he found a way to get in. So congratulations to New Orleans.
Anything else you want to say about the game, Gary? Or?
I'm with Randy on that. And, the one thing is it was a surprise for people because everybody felt like Atlanta is one of the top teams. They don't have any holes. But you know what? We talked about this. They do have a few things going on. I think their offensive line has some issues that they probably, want to address, but they've kind of hid because of that running game. They got away from the running game. We talked about that as well. I just think that, it was really Atlanta kind of failing to do what they're supposed to do, and that's keep the ball in their hands and not just hand it off to the Saints. And not only that, you got to look at Drew Brees. Hey, they gave him opportunities. He took them. And so that's what was the perfect formula for the Saints to win. And once again, these surprises are going to happen.
Do you think this somewhat affects the perception of Atlanta now? They still have a really easy schedule after this game. It's not like that changes, but do you think this affects the way that maybe the national media sees Atlanta? Maybe they don't take them seriously?
I heard a lot of that today, and I just don't understand. Listen. They were 5-0 coming in, yes, and they lost to New Orleans, who has a terrible record. But did we really think they were New England? Did we really think they were Green Bay? Listen, I thought they were going to win this division, and a 5-0 start is a great way to get there. But we never thought they were top class in the NFL. And they've struggled the last 2 weeks, and they lost one. Like you said, Sean, they have a pretty easy schedule, so playoffs are most likely, but when it comes down to playoff time, do we really think they're going to be a contender? No. So, to me, nothing has really changed.
Yeah.
That's
I'm with that.
Yeah, I do have to wonder about the defense just not... It seemed like they weren't... they were pressuring Drew Brees. It just felt like they weren't getting to him or something. I don't know what it is, but credit to the Saints for winning that game, and then making it, maybe saving their season into meaning a little bit of something, because they would have lost that game. That's 2 games in the division. At that point, I think it's over, and maybe Sean Payton has something else to think about at this point, other than maybe moving somewhere else. So, all right. Well, I think we probably talked a little bit more about that game than we probably should have, but it is what it is. Let's move on to talking about the games that have yet to happen on NFL Week 6. I should note that we do have 4 teams that are on bye. The Dallas Cowboys is one of them, so we won't be talking about them on the Monday night, Tuesday morning show. Oakland Raiders, St. Louis Rams, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are all on bye week. So if you have players on those teams, make sure they're not in your lineup when those games start on Sunday. There's certain people that obviously apparently don't understand that, and they still play bye week players regardless. Washington Redskins are traveling to the New York Jets, Randy's team, of course. So he will be watching this game pretty intently. It's a 1 o'clock game, as well most of these games we'll be talking about here until we get to those 4 o'clock games. So Sheldon Richardson is back from his suspension. What is more dangerous, the defensive line or the secondary for the Jets?
For me, I think that the defensive line has gotten better just by this, addition return, whatever you want to call it. But right now, still, to me, the secondary is the beast of this team. I think that they threaten quarterbacks a lot. You know, they don't have to threaten in the sense of rushing the quarterback, but they threaten in the sense of, hey, at any time they can turn the ball in their direction by picking it off. And they cover pretty darn well. So quarterbacks are always having a second guess and hold the ball longer than they want to because of the secondary, which also should help guys like Sheldon Richardson. So let's be honest about that. So for me, yeah, it's secondary.
Yeah, I'll go right there with him. I think the secondary is probably better, but it shows you right here. I mean, the Jets are top 10 in both run defense and pass defense in the league. So all around, just a superb defense that just gets even better with Sheldon Richardson returning. So definitely the Jets defense is something to watch out for.
I mean, having guys you can sub in and out more never hurts. So I'm going to say the secondary too, but when you have a dynamite anything like that, I don't think you can take that lightly at all. So, you know, kudos to the Jets for really stacking that defense, and let's see how far that can take them. But as far as this game, I'm going to ask you this question. I mean, we've seen Fitzpatrick. He tends to get a little happy and sometimes throw interceptions, and we know that Kirk Cousins is prone to making some mistakes and throwing interceptions as well. So what's more likely? Both QBs throw an interception, or neither throw an interception in this game? Not to mention the Jets defense is also, I think, leads the league in turnovers. Or turnovers
takeaways,
forced.
Yeah. I would almost guarantee that this is going to be that both quarterbacks throw at least one interception. The Washington defense is a bit better than I think people give it credit for. And like you said, Fitzpatrick is prone to throw an interception or two. And like you said, the Jets just love to take the ball away. So I'm going to say both.
Yeah, I'll go that way as well, because you look at the fact that, Cousins has got the bigger danger in it because of the fact that the secondary he's facing. But, let's look at and be honest. The Redskins have been rushing the quarterback pretty well, and Fitzpatrick gets happy feet and gets a little bit worried and chunks the ball out there. I could definitely see a pick. So
I definitely think it'll be a total surprise if we don't get interceptions in this game. I think we're going to see them. I think Cousins will probably maybe do one that'll cost them the game, but who knows? This is one of those where you certainly think the Jets should be able to handle Washington, but you never know. Washington's been able to stay in a lot more games than you think that they would, because their defense is really good, and it's going to be interesting to see how that affects Fitzpatrick. So, that being said, everybody picking the Jets here at home, or anybody going to go take the flyer on Washington?
No, give me the Jets, Jets.
Jets have the bye week. They got 2 weeks for the Redskins. Jets are the one for me.
Yeah, I'm going with the Jets too. I've gotten lucky sometimes picking the Redskins, and they played a hell of a lot better than I thought they would last week against the Falcons, but I just think the Jets are going to be too much here. So let's move on to another team that's been really doing well, the Arizona Cardinals. Bruce Arians going to an old team playing the Pittsburgh Steelers, and a lot of talk has been going on about Arizona rising up and wanting to win one for Bruce against the Steelers. Of course, this is still going to have Michael Vick playing quarterback, as Ben Roethlisberger is not ready and should not play in this game. But the Cardinals do have a new addition. Randy mentioned it on the Monday show. Dwight Freeney has been added to that Arizona defense. Is it now even better? Or, maybe Dwight Freeney's a little past it?
I know it definitely doesn't think it hurts anything. I'm sure it'll take a few weeks for him to kind of get acclimated to the team, and I'm sure you won't see him in a ton of snaps on Sunday, but it's definitely an upgrade compared to what other backups you're going to have in Arizona. So yeah, it definitely makes it better.
This is like adding extra chocolate chips to chocolate chip cookies, right? It just makes the deal sweeter. I feel like, Freeney, if nothing else, is going to intimidate guys. He's going to come in there and, be a force. It won't be soon, like Randy said. I mean, this guy's got to get his feet underneath him. He's been out of football for a little while now. So you got to get acclimated to your team. But once he is acclimated and feeling comfortable, he's going to be definitely a help and a threat.
Well, speaking of feeling comfortable, Michael Vick seemed like he was a little bit comfortable more towards the end of the game on Monday night. And we did see him throw a big long bomb that was apparently designed by Ben Roethlisberger himself, not the offensive coordinator. That being said, they did have to have a pick six and a Le'Veon Bell touchdown at the last second to win the game. So, I think it's fair to say that you wonder if Michael Vick will be scoring touchdowns at all. So, over/under 1.5 touchdowns for Michael Vick in this game. Not to mention the Arizona defense is pretty awesome, too.
Yeah, listen, he hasn't thrown more than 1 touchdown all year. Arizona's good, just like you said. So give me the under for Vick's touchdowns.
I would love to take the over just to see it happen, but I'm, right there with Randy. It just does not show up on the stat sheet, and I just think that he's going to be under pressure all day long. So, no, I'm taking the under.
I'm going to take the under, too. It's really difficult to say that they're not going to rely on the same things they've been relying since Michael Vick's been there. It's possible, but Arizona's defense is so good, I could see him throwing interceptions more than touchdowns in this game. So who you have winning? Do you have Arizona coming into Pittsburgh and winning, or do you think the Steelers go back-to-back on the wins?
Give me the Cardinals.
Yeah, I got Cardinals.
I got the Cardinals, too. Again, one of these really tough ones. I could see Pittsburgh winning at home. But, it's hard to say.
Yeah.
So, Randy, I had a system for this, and you just totally had to sit there and screw with it, but whatever. I was going to go every 2 games on the fantasy questions, because that way it's a little bit less regimented. So Gary, if you had a choice between Arizona Cardinal receivers, would you take John Brown or Larry Fitzgerald?
If you ask me, I would lean on Fitzgerald a little bit here. It's hard because I think both these guys could have success. If I'm not wrong, I think Brown's injured, isn't he? I had to look that up again. I wish we had our own Stephania Bell on this show. But I'll take Fitzgerald just because I think there's injury situations on that other side.
Yeah. So on the other side, on the other game that I was waiting until we got to the end of this game to talk about. Pierre Garçon or Eric Decker? Who would you say has more fantasy points?
I'm going to go with Decker. I think Garçon could have some junk, time, because if there's a situation where the Jets get ahead big in the game, I think it's going to be a closer game than that, to be honest with you. I think these teams do have a good matchup here, but I think Decker's going to have a pretty good day because, let's be honest, the Washington secondary is not as good.
Fair enough. All right, let's move on to the next game on our list here. Another game Randy is covering. I'm covering the Cardinals and Steelers, by the way. So Randy's covering the Kansas City Chiefs. His Super Bowl pick, by the way, I should remind everyone. Minnesota against the Minnesota Vikings. Going away are the Chiefs to Minnesota, that is. The big question on everybody's mind, and I have to ask it here, is can the Chiefs win without Jamal Charles? Gary?
Ooh, that's a great question. And, Jamal Charles is such a big key to this team. I think that he's definitely, one of the main guys, part of this offense, one of the guys that keeps this thing going for them. Alex Smith has done his job this year. He's kept the guys on track. He's done a pretty decent job. But looking at this game, between Niles Davis, and his issues keeping the ball in his hands, and, of course, we're not really sure what we're going to get out of Charles West. I look at the fact that Minnesota's run defense is pretty good. And without a guy like Jamal Charles who can beat pretty good defenses. I think they're going to be a little bit of trouble there, so I think it's going to cause them to be unbalanced. I don't think so. I think without Jamal Charles, they're going to suffer.
All right, Randy. It's a similar question to, because we do have to wonder about that rushing game now for the Chiefs. Fact or fiction, the Chiefs will have a rushing touchdown in this game.
I'm going to say fact. The Vikings defense is not very good against the run, so yeah, they're going to get one.
I'm going to say it's going to be Alex Smith with a rushing touchdown.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I saw what we saw in the past, but I'm just not sold that Minnesota is not going to be able to stop these guys. I think they are bipolar, if you ask me. I don't think they're bad against the run. I think they're bipolar against the run.
We could also see Niall Davis be the one that takes out the goal line carries.
Yeah,
bigger guy.
And Randy asked me last week, who do you choose, Niles Davis or do you choose West? And it was a hard decision for me. I chose Niall because he's the veteran. He's been there before, but we won't know. And I don't really, to be honest with anybody, I'm not sure we're going to get that answer this weekend. I still think to myself that Minnesota's going to bottle up those running backs.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see. What they do with that running back situation. Is it going to be a committee? Is it going to be given to West? And then Davis kind of comes in to just be the change of pace guy. We'll have to see. Is Alex Smith going to be throwing a lot more, which is not what you want if you're Kansas City. So we will have to see in this game. But that being said, with all the stuff with the running game and all that, who you got?
I'm going Minnesota.
Yep, me too.
Gonna go with the Vikings. We'll just make it another trifecta here. So let's move to a big game for various reasons. The Bengals traveling to Buffalo to take on the Buffalo Bills. Andy Dalton has another big game in this one, Randy.
No, I don't think he does. Buffalo defense is very, very good. Obviously, it's going to be all on them with the Tyrod Taylor injury issues. So I think they step it up and shut down Dalton compared to what he's been doing.
Well, Gary, I've got to ask you about, Randy just mentioned Buffalo's defense, but Cincinnati has a damn good defense too. And with Tyrod Taylor's injury, this is going to be an interesting little question here. Who has more sacks? The Bengals defense or the Buffalo defense?
Looking at both those quarterbacks are, having a decent season. Dalton's definitely having the better fantasy season if you look at this. And sack-wise, with both these defenses and what these quarterbacks can do, I think for me personally, with the injury Tyrod Taylor has, it's going to definitely keep him immobile. I think for me, I'm going to go with Cincinnati. I think he's going to be a statue for most of this game, and he's not good at that. I think he's better with his feet. So I'm going Cincinnati.
Randy?
Yeah, I'll go Cincinnati as well. I don't think Tyrod Taylor plays.
All right. Well, Gary, let's say Tyrod Taylor does play.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe he doesn't play. Whether he does or doesn't, it's certainly going to affect what he does on the field. So that means it's also going to affect the other Buffalo players, right? The other Buffalo offensive players.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's going to affect most of the offense.
Would you start any Buffalo offensive players if you're because of Taylor's injury?
No, for me personally, there's not very many on this offense. I mean, your best bet, Charles Clay, and I'm not even confident in him. They've got so many injuries. You got Sammy Watkins having injuries. You got LaShawn McCoy that is probable for this game. Can't really trust him either. I don't trust any of the backup running backs. They're honestly, without Taylor, I have a lot of bad feelings about this offense, so no.
I would say McCoy you might want to start because I trust him over Boobie Dixon or Herron to actually do something. He can also always be a factor in the passing game, which is, if Taylor doesn't play, that's going to be a big factor with whoever the backup is.
You could play him. I have very low expectations. I never want to put my name on something where he's going to get you 45 yards. That's it. You don't want 4 points.
Yeah, that's
true.
That can happen.
And if he has another hamstring pull, you may not see 10 yards.
So, over under 15 fantasy points for Teddy Bridgewater, Gary.
I like the Cincinnati defense. I don't think that Minnesota is going to dominate it through the air. They're going to try. I'm going to go under.
All right, fair enough. We'll have to
They're
see.
playing Kansas City, by the way.
Oh, what am I thinking? Wrong game.
By the way, it's still Teddy Bridgewater.
It is still Teddy Bridgewater, but they are playing Kansas City. I'll go over. I'm just thinking about the Bengals right now. You got me on that track. You switched games on me, Sean. Yeah, definitely. The Kansas City's defense has not done well. The secondary has not been there. I'm going to go over.
All right.
Even though it is Teddy Bridgewater, keep your low expectations, but I'm going over.
All right, well, a game, Randy's covering that Bengals-Buffalo game, which should be hopefully pretty fun for him to watch. Well, let's see. A game that could be good or could be terrible. The Chicago Bears going to Detroit. To hopefully the Lions are not 0-5. Oh, I forgot. We got to actually pick a winner for this Bengals-Buffalo game.
I'll take Bengals.
Randy? Randy? Oh, did he go to sleep again? Oh, we lost him.
Uh-oh.
Looks like he just went off Skype on accident. Alright, maybe his computer did something. So, yeah, I'm going to get... Oh, man, this is rough, because I think this is one of those where I think Andy Dalton's going to have a rough day. I'm going to go Bengals, but I'm not too confident about that one.
Yeah, I mean, to me, personally, both these defenses are good, but I think the offenses are going to be night and day. I just don't think Buffalo's going to have much to offer. I think the Bengals' offense is what wins the game.
Well, I guess we'll have to move on here. Hopefully Randy will show back up at some point. Again, Chicago Bears against the Detroit Lions. Should Jim Caldwell be on the hot seat if the Lions don't win?
I think anytime you're having a season like the Lions are having, I think the coach has to be on the hot seat. If nothing else from the fans' perspective, if not from the organization. But
oh crap! What's going on? Gary, you cut out. Oh no! Skype is just being terrible. Man, okay, so we lose the podcast once. Now, Skype's being terrible and not wanting to keep the guys on. I don't know what's happening. But apparently Skype's having trouble with Gary, so I'm going to have to, I guess, go on with this by myself until one of them shows back up. So, yeah, I mean, to me, I think Jim Caldwell, he definitely should be on the hot seat. If he is, I mean, I think he made a great decision in benching Stafford last week because certainly it's one of those things where he understood he wasn't having a good game, and you just have to hope he has a better game against the Bears, which he should. The Bears' defense has been terrible. And I mean, he has to find Calvin Johnson. He has to find his receivers. This running game needs to get going, which has been a problem too. It's put a lot of pressure on Stafford. So, and this is one of those situations where you have so much talent there, and you're paying between Calvin Johnson and Stafford so much money that at some point the coach has to be at fault for what's going on the field. So, I think to me you definitely do need to put Caldwell in the hot seat there.
Yeah.
Well, good to have you back at least.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on here, but
we're just not having a great day with
I know,
Skype
man. So.
Randy's still not back on yet. I don't know what's going on. He's not telling me anything on Facebook either. But, alright, well, let's move on to the question here. Sorry, I'm just kind of disoriented with all the stuff that's going on. Who has the better game, Jay Cutler or Matthew Stafford, in a game that I think the Lions have to have and Stafford has to do well in?
I agree. I think, Stafford is going to do his best and he'll have an okay game. But, I'll be honest with you. I really feel like Jay Cutler has the hot hand here. I don't really have a whole lot to back that up, but he did a pretty decent day last week, and I think he can, come against this Detroit defense and have another great game. Matthew Stafford is just, there's a lot of issues there. What we talked about this last week, his connection with Calvin Johnson hasn't been there. Calvin Johnson hasn't exactly gotten open like he has in years past. And, of course, with Golden Tate having his injury concerns, and we also look at Ebron being hurt. He's got a lot of guys dealing with a lot of things. And so, to me, I think Jay Cutler, even without Alshon Jeffries, I think he's going to be the better quarterback here.
I'm going to go ahead and say Stafford because I think he knows how badly this team has to win this game. If they value anything in the season, if Jim Caldwell, I think he does have a lot at stake here if they don't win. So everybody needs to be on point, and that starts with your quarterback and Matthew Stafford. So, Gary, do you start any of the Detroit running backs in this game? I mean, remember, Chicago's defense isn't that great.
You could definitely think Abdullah could have a good game here. And he struggled so much lately for some reason. I'm not understanding his struggles because at the beginning of the season we were really high on him. But Bell is injured, but he's probable for this game. It looks like, if nothing else, questionable. I think he could play in this game. But right now my confidence level isn't real high with the Detroit running game. And yeah, sure, Chicago's defense isn't perfect, but we saw Chicago do a decent job against the Seattle Seahawks and their running backs are nothing to scoff at. So I'd not sold the Detroit's running back game is going to be great.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on, but apparently Randy can't come back on tonight. So it'll just be us for the rest of the show. Yeah, so who you got?
I'm going to go ahead and go with Chicago in this game, surprisingly enough.
I'm going to say Detroit takes this one at home. I think they finally get off the snide here. Speaking of getting off the snide, do you know that the Cleveland Browns have not beat the Denver Broncos since December 8, 1990, Gary?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was 4. It's certainly it's in Cleveland now. So that begs the question: with the way Peyton Manning's been playing, he's had to rely a lot on the defense. Should the Broncos be worried this could be a trap game for them?
They should be to an extent. I mean, because of the fact that that stat you just mentioned, but not only that. I mean, look at the situation that they've been in with some other teams that they haven't, Well, let's just be honest. Let's look at last week, the Raiders. I mean, we really felt like that, hey, Broncos should run right through them, right? Didn't happen that way. And I could see Cleveland kind of tightening up against them and maybe trying, to do the same thing and maybe cause an upset. But not that I'm saying I'm going to see that. I just, I think that they should be careful and wary of walking into a trap game.
Yeah, I think they do need to worry about this because it's something where, you have in the back of your mind, you've beaten Cleveland so many times, obviously different teams here, but, it's, you do have to worry, you're going into Cleveland, the dog pound's going to be going crazy, that team is coming off a big emotional win, so are the Broncos for that matter, but with the way Peyton Manning's been not throwing that well, I think you do have to worry about Cleveland could come up here with an upset. And, especially Denver being 5-0, being undefeated, the teams are going to go after you a lot more. So let's see what happens. But I am worried about that as well. So who has the better game here, Peyton Manning or Josh McCown?
Yeah, I still think you got to go with Peyton Manning. He hasn't been perfect. He hasn't done anything to just make you go, wow. But let's be honest, McCown is as great as a game as he has had in the past. This Broncos defense is pretty tough, if not one of the better defensive, basically overall team defenses in the league. Their secondary is great. They're doing fine. Their defensive front seven is doing fine. So you've definitely, for me, you got to go with Peyton on this one.
Yeah, I almost want to say McCown because the way Peyton's been playing, he's had to have his defense built. I am going to say I think McCown winds up having a better game. I think Cleveland's going to be much more motivated. They're at home. Maybe Peyton has the better talent around him, certainly, but I think, McCown, the way he's been, where he has to put a lot on himself, he's been making the throws. I think we'll have to see. Obviously, Denver's defense is one of the best in the league, and they're going to be bearing down on him. Let's see. Do you start either of the Denver running backs in this game, Gary?
I think Hillman will have a pretty decent game in this. I really feel like he's the guy if you're going to play anybody. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be a game buster. I'm saying, if you need a flex guy, maybe a second running back, I think he's definitely a good option. But that's the guy I would probably look at playing.
Yeah, Hillman has been the more reliable one, certainly. So, moving, who do you got?
I'm going to go with the Broncos. I just think that, even if it is a close, tight game, I think this Broncos pull it out.
Yeah, I think the Broncos wind up pulling it out. But, man, I just think this is going to be one of those, where Cleveland makes it close and it's going to, go down to the wire again. So we got a battle for the bottom of the AFC South between Houston and Jacksonville. Houston, of course, is traveling to Jacksonville for this game. Do you think Jacksonville has one of the best offenses in the league that no one talks about?
I think so to an extent. They've got a pretty scrappy group. They got a young group, but they haven't exactly showcased that, they're winning games with that group. I think that's why you're not hearing. I don't think it's a bad thing you're not hearing about them. I think it's kind of a good thing for them because they're kind of the underdogs, and not only that, they're under the radar.
I think, they are kind of reveling in that. But also, I think Blake Bortles having himself one heck of a year so far, and that offense is, TJ Yeldon's doing pretty decently. Both the Allens are just chalking in yards and touchdowns. So, even Brian Walters showed up in the last game. You still got Julius Thomas, who hasn't done a whole lot. If he can get on, this offense could be scary. So.
Oh yeah. Definitely. You add another weapon for Bortles. You're right. They could be a team that, goes from, having pretty good days to great days. I think that's the big thing with this offense is they just haven't had, a situation where they could be consistent. And, maybe Thomas is that guy to help be consistent.
Yeah. I agree with you. Thomas is going to be a big key going forward, I think, for them. Fact or fiction, though, Ryan Mallett plays in this game.
Mallett? No, I think Hoyer. I don't imagine that Jacksonville's defense is going to force Hoyer out of this game. I feel like Hoyer is going to be in there, and barring injury, but to me, it'd be a big surprise to see Mallett in there.
I think if you're Bill O'Brien, do not even think about bringing it. It doesn't matter if you get down 50-0. Don't bring in Ryan Mallett. Just stop playing the QB carousel. You picked Hoyer. You got to give him more than a game, just like you did with Mallett. You've got to stop doing this ring around the rosy thing with the quarterbacks. You've got to give your defense, your offense, some kind of confidence that they know who's going to be under center before that game even starts. So, to me, I don't think he should play. But it is a legit question because we don't know. If they play badly enough, could he get antsy and put in the other guy who hasn't looked that great either? So, well, Gary, I just mentioned Blake Bortles having a pretty good year so far. Over under 18.5 fantasy points of Blake Bortles.
In this game, that's a good question. I'm trying to think if I would put him over in this game. You know what? He's had a pretty decent. I think I will give it to him. I could see him definitely have a great game here.
All right. Who do you got?
Oh man, just I've made my pick and I'm kind of fighting myself because I'll be honest with everybody. I want to pick Jacksonville. I think that they're a team, like Sean said, we keep talking about it. They're a scrappy team. They make things happen, and not only that, if Yelding was, really healthy, I would be really tempted to pick Jacksonville in this game because of those reasons. But, to me personally, I can't do it. I got to go with the Texans.
I'm going to go with Jacksonville. I think they have played so well. They ran into just... the defense is just playing too good for the Buccaneers. Now, granted, again, we're talking about another defense that could easily come in and make Blake Bortles' life miserable as far as that defensive line goes. But, I'm not too... the Houston defense hasn't been showing up lately. Maybe they need to play a team like Jacksonville for that to happen, but I think Jacksonville's finally going to get a win here at home. So... moving along, we got one more game. It's a pretty big game for one Dan Campbell, who's making his debut as a head coach for the Miami Dolphins. Miami travels to Tennessee. It's, of course, the game I'm covering. I'm also covering the Houston. I'm covering a bunch of games here with Chicago, the Denver game, Houston, and Miami all in one. And Randy's covering the last two, the two 425 games. But, so Dan Campbell needs this game to be a win to kind of maybe put himself in the hat for retaining the job. Like, it's always good to have that first game as a win, right? I don't know where I'm going with this, but it will negatively impact him if the team doesn't win this game.
It's hard for me to say that. What you got? The bye week with them, and you sit there and work with them. But they've had their own failures before he even took charge. So I think you've got to get the team acclimated. I think 2 weeks is great, but it's not enough. And until you're with your team on game day, it's hard to say that. I think you got to give him an opportunity. Now, to be honest with you, I feel Tennessee is one of the better matchups if you're going to come out of a bye week. And not only that, if you want to have a margin for success, I'm happy for Dan Campbell. He's not facing the Patriots this game, But I think that, they can't hate on him right away. You got to give him an opportunity. I think ownership will too.
Yeah, I think he's going to have, unless they just do terribly under him, I think he's going to have the rest of the season. But if you want the team to have confidence in itself, you need to see change immediately. Mm-hmm. And it's not like Tennessee's this great powerhouse team. They are a little bit over the level that Miami's at right now, but Tennessee's, they didn't look that great against Buffalo either. So Miami should definitely be able to come in here and put up a fight and should win this game, I think. That being said, because of the new coach bump and all that stuff, you think Ryan Tannehill is going to be more motivated to have a much better game? You think you'll say he's the player of the game when this game's over?
Oh, he very well could be. Quarterbacks have had pretty good days against Tennessee. And I think the motivation, really, I'm not sure if it's really about the head coach. I think it really just relies on the fact that I think he can feel pretty confident in some of the guys around him, and I think maybe the coaching situation only affects him because maybe they feel like they have a new day, if you want to say it that way. They have a brand new start. So, yeah, I mean, I could see that. I would give it to Tannehill. I think if anybody's going to have a good day for Miami offensively, it'd be Tannehill. The running game is still skeptical on that still.
Yeah, I mean, the running game's going to have to improve here to help out Tannehill. I mean, Tennessee's defense, I think, is it against the run or the pass? I think they're actually like one of the best teams against the pass. So Ryan Tannehill's going to have a pretty rough one here if that continues to hold. But this is where Lamar Miller and whoever, Jonas Gray, whoever's going to be running the ball needs to actually come in there and have a better game. Obviously, offensive line, that's a key thing too. But it shouldn't be all on Tannehill. It's going to be a tough day if it's all on him. So fantasy question here, Gary. Mariota has over 16 fantasy points in each of the first 3 weeks. He only got 10 last week. Over under 15 this week.
That's a good question as well. I would go. I'm going to go under. I think he's going to have an okay day, but I'm not sold that he's going to have a great day against Miami. I'm not saying Miami's defense is doing anything great this year, but I think you just talked about motivation. I think maybe this new head coach is going to motivate that defense to play like they should play.
Yeah, I mean, I think Miami's defense is going to step up. You're going to see Sue be the Sue that we know a lot more in this game. I think Mariota's going to be pressured a lot more than we've seen the Dolphins do that lately. I would kind of take the under on that this week. So moving on to the 4 o'clock games. As long as everything stays the way it is right now, Randy and I are supposed to be doing the Carolina and Seattle game on Ravel TV. So if you're not doing anything around 4 o'clock Eastern on Sunday, check us out. Randy and I will be calling the game from the beginning till the end, so it should be a fun time. So to me, this game, they've played each other a lot recently. I think it's like 4 times the last 4 years, including playoffs, and it always these two teams play very similarly. Do you think it will be the defenses of both teams that will be the story when the game's over?
I definitely believe so. I mean, we've seen that, let's be honest, Seattle's offense hasn't been the strength of their team at all. In Carolina, Cam Newton's been the team. So I think defensively, they both come in here with strong defenses. But yeah, I think that will be the tail of the tape.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Seattle, it has to be after the collapse that it was last week. I think you definitely need it to be. That defense better show up throughout the game. Now Carolina's going to have to do the same thing and pressure Russell Wilson and make him not such big a factor. He can't be running around and doing all that. And then, you got the same thing with Cam Newton. So that's going to be one of those things where we'll have to look out and see how that goes. Over under 100 yards and a touchdown for Marshawn Lynch, who's been injured, and he's apparently ready to go and going to have a full load. Do you think that puts him over the mark here?
Ooh, over the mark, I'm not sure. I think, he'll be okay. I always have worries in this situation, so I'm not going to give him too much. I think, it would have a decent day.
So, who would you start over Jimmy Graham at this point, if at all? Should you start another tight end, or is this Seattle trying to make Jimmy Graham be something he's not?
I mean, start another tight end over Jimmy Graham if you got a guy like, I don't know, if you have someone like Greg Olsen, yeah, sure. But most people that have Graham don't have that luxury. I can't imagine you're going to want to sit Graham. Yeah, sure, Seattle has not played him the way that maybe our fantasy teams are loving him from the past. But, I mean, you've got to keep a guy like that in your lineup. You've got to always, give the opportunity for him. And I think, honestly, Seattle's going to try to find more ways to get him the ball. They paid way too much. They gave it way too much to not do that. So, yeah, you definitely, no matter what, you got to keep him in your lineup.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Who's the second tight end? The one that made all the crazy cats last year and all that.
Oh, I'm trying to think offhand. I don't know.
Luke
Luke Wilson. Yes, Luke Wilson. Yes.
I mean, I think Luke Wilson kind of covers what he has the rapport with Russell Wilson. I think you kind of start him, and to me, honestly, I don't understand what you're doing trying to make Jimmy Graham a blocking tight end. He's not a blocking tight end.
I like what Jimmy Johnson said about him. He's not a blocking tight end, and he's not a tight end at all. He's a receiver. And I can see that. I could
just get him out there and make him be a receiver in the slot. I don't understand. It's not that hard.
Yeah, I get that too, and I think if nothing else, if you're so worried about blocking and all that, you come in here and you play two tight ends. You don't just put Graham out there alone. You got to play two tight ends.
Well. Let's see. Where am I at here? Oh, I think we didn't pick the game from Miami and Tennessee.
I got Miami.
I got Miami as well. I think they win on that new coach bump. Who do you got, Carolina or Seattle? This is
you're right. It is a tough one. And, looking at both these teams, once again, it's going to be a defensive struggle. I don't imagine either offense is just going to go nuts. We also get lucky to see Luke Kuechly joining that defense for Carolina once again. So, I mean, that's going to be a big boost for them. But for me personally, I think I'm going to have to give my nod to Seattle.
I got to give it to Seattle, too, at home. That's so hard. I mean, a lot of these games that they've had has been in Carolina. I think that it being in Seattle is a big deal. So, we're moving on to San Diego, going into Lambeau Field to play the Green Bay Packers. Phillip Rivers will have to outperform Aaron Rodgers in order to win this game.
I definitely agree with that. That is going to be a big key in this game, and that's keeping up with what's going on in Green Bay. Green Bay is doing a great job. They're fighting teams with firepower all the way. You've got to definitely outscore this team. And the hard part about that is Green Bay's defense is nothing to snuff at. I mean, they've done a wonderful job this year. They've got things together on that side of the ball. So it's going to be an uphill battle. We saw that, San Diego didn't exactly have a great time against a, very average Pittsburgh defense. I had think that, this is going to be a tougher task.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen that the Green Bay's defense has kind of kept them in games the last two. And with the way San Diego looked against the Steelers defense on Monday, I think this is going to be really rough on Phillip Rivers with that offensive line, the way they're not blocking, all that stuff. This is going to be, Phillip Rivers is going to have to do a hell of a lot here. To say that I think he could even outperform Aaron Rodgers, and, who knows, and they still lose because it does. At that point, it's just the defense against the other defense, and I would pick Packers defense at that point.
Oh yeah, definitely. I agree with that, and I think it's a big key for Phillip Rivers to have a bigger game. But you're right, Sean. You do make a great point that there's a lot of other factors a part of this game. For me personally, I just look at this and say if the stat wise, if Phillip Rivers has an excellent game, it's got a better stat line over Aaron Rodgers, I'm thinking, man, San Diego must have won that game just because of that fact. But you're right. The defense is better. Green Bay's at least.
Over under 2.5 turnovers for the Packers defense.
I'm going to say over. I think that they're going to make things happen. I just, like you said, they're going to get all sorts of pressure on Phillip Rivers. He's going to make mistakes, and he can't trust Melvin Gordon not to make a few himself.
I think, the Packers defense, Rivers was going to get pressure. He's going to get prone to making a mistake, and we already, Gary noted with Melvin Gordon too, and even Danny Woodhead. So, let's see. Does Antonio Gates duplicate his performance from last week?
I don't know that he gets 2 touchdowns, but I will say that he'll have a great game.
All right, who you got?
I'm going Green Bay.
I'm going to go Green Bay, too. So, big game here for 2 teams that are not going in the right direction. Baltimore going into San Francisco, a rematch of a previous Super Bowl, and also, used to be the Harbaugh Bowl and all that stuff. So, is Joe Flacco one of the most underrated QBs in the league? Overrated.
I think right now, if you ask me, he's overrated. I think he's done great in the playoffs. We know how great he's done in the playoffs, but this isn't the playoffs. Not only that, I think he's had to come back down to earth, especially with the receivers that he has now compared to what he had with Steve Smith not being on the field. That hurts him a lot. You see him come back to reality. I think he's definitely a good quarterback, but I think some people will kind of push him up there in the upper echelon, and I don't really agree with that.
Yeah, I would have said, I still think Joe Flacco's a good quarterback. It wasn't on him that they lost that game in Cleveland. That was on the defense, and obviously the defense has been injury riddled this whole season, so that's hard to just put on them too. But Forsett was running through Cleveland. Flacco was making the throws he needed to make, and obviously also Flacco's down Steve Smith Sr. and all that stuff too. He doesn't have the choice weapons you want. No Crockett Gilmore either, so it's hard for me to say that he's overrated right now, but I think he's kind of just middling at this point with the team being the way it is. So, fact or fiction, Colin Kaepernick has his best game of the season.
Colin Kaepernick, man, he is just one of those guys, it's just, you don't know if you can trust him. He's very Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, So, I don't think so.
I'm going to say he does, because this Ravens defense hasn't really been able to stop quarterbacks. Michael Vick notwithstanding, but I think San Francisco at home, they're much better. I think Kaepernick is going to have confidence from how he played, on Sunday night against the Giants, and I think he goes in there and has a much better game and has one of his best games. Well,
looking at all the injuries that Baltimore has, he definitely has the opportunity. He does. Like I said, this season especially, he's so up and down. So, it's hard for me to say, oh yeah, he'll do just as great as he did against, the Giants. I don't know if I can believe that until I see it.
So let's go to Sunday. Well, hold on. If you have to start someone who isn't Justin Forsett, do you start Flacco for the Ravens here?
Mm-hmm. You know what, Forsett, his injury situation. I think you could try to start Forsett. You just got to keep your eye on the wire and see if he's going to be active. But I don't know if I'm going to start him in a bunch of leagues unless that injury looks better by that game day decision. I still am very speculative. I wouldn't put him in my starting lineup above 1. 2 maybe, or flex is about where I'd put him.
Yeah. So who you got?
I'm going to go San Francisco. I know I said all that about Kaepernick, but I think San Francisco is going to be good at home.
All right. Sunday Night Football. Big game here. We still don't even know. Andrew Luck is still kind of day-to-day. There's still... you'd think he would go for this game, being it's such a big game, but a lot of people are saying they should just go ahead and bench him, let Hasselbeck play one more game, even though he's been sick too. And not feeling great, so we don't even know if he would play behind him. That being said, with everything going on, will this be a close game?
Yeah, I mean, I think it will be. I mean, for the most part. I mean, looking at the whole situation, no, I take that back. I don't know. It just depends on Hasselbeck, really. I don't know. I would say it would because of history, but man, this is not the same Colts team. They may be up for this game, and that's what I kind of have a little bit of stutter here. But I'm going to go with my gut. My gut tells me that the Patriots just walk away with this game. I just think that the Colts defense is not ready for this team. I don't even imagine the Colts offense is ready for this team.
This is going to be rough on the Colts offense because we saw it before where they just ran it up their gut when everybody thought it was just going to be Tom Brady passing all the time. I think Patriots are going to have fun with this, especially if Andrew Luck doesn't play. Even if Andrew Luck does play, you have to wonder if his shoulder and all that's going to be an issue. I don't know. I think the Patriots blow him out.
Yeah, and Andrew Luck, Matt Hasselbeck, I don't think it matters who's a quarterback in this game. I really don't. I just think that it could start out slow. People are going to be like, oh, this is great. The game starts out, the first quarter ends 14-7, and then I think after that, I think New England starts to separate themselves. So, yeah, I got New England.
Well, I guess it's a no-brainer that Tom Brady is going to have the better game then out of the quarterbacks.
Definitely. I feel like he's going to have a pretty darn good day.
So, but if you're the coach, do you start Andrew Luck in this game?
You know what? I mean, you need Andrew Luck. You need him to do what he does best, and that's give your team an opportunity to make things happen. Not only with his feet, but his arms have been pretty good. Now with this injury situation, I'm not sold that he's going to be at full strength, especially if they're still having considerations of playing him or not to play him. That means that he is not completely the guy that he needs to be. But for me, if I'm looking at this game, to be competitive, I feel like you need him. So I may play him if trainers, doctors say that, he'll be fine.
Man, this is one of those games I think you're losing. I think you sit him. You don't want to risk getting injured more.
And you're taking the Pittsburgh Steelers approach. You're taking that approach of, hey, Big Ben, we don't look like we have really much of an opportunity to win this game, so sit out another week. I get you. I just don't know. I just don't think the Colts are looking at it through those eyes.
I know they're not, but I think if you're the Colts, you're thinking about next week, and do you really want to risk Andrew Luck hurting himself or something like that, and then he's gone for longer? Just sit in one more game, and the Colts will be okay. This division is terrible.
Yeah.
But that being said, Patriots, right?
Yeah, Patriots.
All right, Monday Night Football, the new big NFC showdown here. It's in Philadelphia. New York Giants are coming into town. They're the favorites. They're the team that everybody's looking at to possibly win this division now. The Eagles beat the Saints, but it was still the Saints at that point, on the road. What's more likely, the Eagles blow out the Giants or Eli makes another fourth quarter comeback?
Oh, that's another good question, man. And these are tough tonight, I'm telling you, because I think the Giants can definitely hang with the Philadelphia Eagles. I think that their defense is not great, but I think they've had some success and some tough games. But for me, if I'm going to go off the cuff, I think we could see more of possibly Philadelphia going crazy here and having a big score.
Is this a must-win game for the Eagles?
I definitely think so. I mean, they did themselves some service, winning last week, like you said. But, I feel like, they know to keep in this race, they've got to win. And especially to win this division, you've got to win the division games. So for me personally, yeah, I think that this is a huge game for the Eagles, and they know they got to win it.
I think it is too. I think you don't want to lose another division game. You already lost you'll have lost to each team once.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you want to do that. And if you're the Eagles, you got to win at home at this point. So, who's more likely to win your fantasy matchup with a big late game play, do you think?
Looking at this game and looking at both teams, I think that, we've got two quarterbacks here, Eli Manning being the better quarterback at this moment. Sam Bradford could have a great game here, and I don't doubt that. But, we've seen Bradford be up and down himself, and Eli's been pretty darn consistent. So I think in this game, Eli's going to have a pretty decent game. I think we're going to expect lots from him, even though he's going to be short without Beckham possibly. Randall is probably going to be his number one receiver, which is kind of crazy, but I still think with that arm, with that offense, he makes things happen. So I think you're going to see Eli have a pretty good game here, and don't put it past those, Philadelphia running backs from having a little bit of success, but not a whole lot. So for me right now, I'm going to go with Eli having the better game, even though Bradford could have a blowout game. I just don't know if I'm willing to put my name on Bradford yet.
Yeah, I would vote more on Eli Manning at this point. So, that being said, Randy's not here to kind of help us out with the, he kind of caught us off guard.
Yeah, by the way, I'm choosing the Eagles.
Yeah, I think I wound up picking, this is one of those things that should have had the damn pick 'em in front of me. I'm trying not to have things that would possibly mess up the feed at this point. I'm kind of a little worried about having anything run.
Yeah, I get you.
I think I did pick the Eagles, but let me see if I can get the college.
Get the college
pick
thing.
them really quick here so we can run through these. So all right, we saw Oregon lose big last week. Who do you got? You got Oregon again, or are you picking Washington in Washington?
Oregon has struggled so much this year, and wow, have the Ducks fallen. And so this is it's a funny game for me, but I think for me personally, I'm going to go with Washington. I think here, I just don't imagine that the Oregon's. I just don't imagine they're ready to go. I take that back. Why would I choose the Ducks? I don't know. I'm going with Ducks. Why not? I think they could do it.
I'm gonna say Oregon too, but I've got it as my one confident. I am not confident at all.
Yeah.
That being said, another game that this is going to be big time in the SEC West. Alabama going into College Station. Texas A&M is 5-0. Who do you got? I got Alabama. I think this is one of those where people are expecting Texas A&M to keep it rolling. I think Alabama's going to come in and crash the party.
And this is my 1 point because I have no idea. I think both these teams have strengths and weaknesses. Alabama has not impressed me overly this year. But the one thing that I do know about Alabama is they win the games that you think they're not going to. And this is a game where I see in the fourth quarter, somehow, some way, Alabama comes back and wins. I think Texas A&M is, quarterback-wise, doing great. But they've also shown their struggles as well. We haven't seen any of them be game busters like we expected. So I'm going Alabama.
I'm going to go Alabama, too. I have it as my number 2 confidence because I'm not that confident in it. Well, too bad, Randy's not on here to discuss the Arizona State coming in and having to play Utah in Utah. Who do you have for this one?
I do. Sorry for Randy for me to pick this because I would love to one way pick Arizona State, but for me for pick'ems, I gotta choose Utah. They're too hot.
All right, I got Utah as well. They're on a roll. They're number 4 right now. So, Michigan and Michigan State, big rivalry game in Michigan in the Big House. Jim Harbaugh has them rolling after that loss to Utah early on. You think that Michigan State hasn't looked all that confident, or they have not looked all that powerful, but they're still 6-0. You think I've got Michigan in this game, and I got it as my 6.
I've got Michigan at 5. I just think Michigan's going to find a way to win this game.
So USC, with their new coach, mid-season, against Notre Dame.
I wanted to put Notre Dame out of the contest. I wanted to put Notre Dame completely out of this thing because of the fact that, they did lose their starting quarterback, but they've proven that's not going to be a big factor here. They're going to do fine. They beat USC.
Yeah, I think Notre Dame's getting this. I think they're going to be in a shock from all the stuff that's been going on. This is a rough team to play with losing you with your coach having his issues and all that. I think that Notre Dame wins. I got it as my 7. Where do you have it?
I have that game actually at my 9.
Virginia Tech going into Miami. I think they still have the backup here, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Miami hasn't looked that great, but I've still taken Miami here at home. I got it as my 8.
I got Miami at number 6 for me. I think Miami's going to, find a way to win. That's what they're really good at. And, yeah, I think they'll take care of business here.
Iowa, still 6-0, going in Northwestern, who is 5-1, and they always, pull at least one big upset.
That's going to be a tough game to choose as well. You're right. Northwestern, the way they've been playing, Iowa, this is a tough choice for me, and I just trying to think about what I chose. What was, let's see if I can find it here. I apologize. I had it right here in front of me. I actually have Northwestern, and that is my number 2 pick, though. I'm not real confident. I think Iowa has a very good chance against them.
I'm going to say Northwestern. I have it as my 9 because I think this is the upset special, especially at home. Louisville going into Florida State.
Oof.
I have this as my 10. Louisville has not looked good at all.
No, Louisville is not. And, I have a 3 right now. I really didn't change mine up a whole lot, my confidence points, just a few games. But, yeah, I agree with you, Sean. I think Florida State should pretty much take care of the business.
All right. So we got a couple more big games here. Oklahoma, after the loss to Texas, going into Kansas State, who almost upset TCU. I think Kansas State pulls the upset.
You think so? And I would almost agree with you, but I'm going Sooners here. I only have a 4-point confidence level in it, but I think they're ticked about losing to Texas. I think they're going to come and play hard.
I have it as my 3. I'm not too confident, but I have it as my 3. So I have this as my 4, but if Will Grier had not been suspended, this would have been the big game of the entire weekend. LSU at home against Florida. That's LSU right now.
Yeah.
Will Grier.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, for sure. That's my number 10. I'm that confident in it.
All right. So that does it for the college. What are you most excited about watching this week? Or this weekend, sorry.
You know what? That Texas A&M Alabama game has fun written all over it. That's the one I can't wait to watch. I'm so excited about checking it out. It's going to be a great game, especially with the Aggies having that game at home. The crowd's going to be rowdy. It's going to be a raucous. But, for me personally, that's the game to watch.
I would agree with you that it's the game of the watch now. I'm going to look more to the NFL. I think the game that Randy and I are doing, hopefully he feels good enough to do it on Sunday, because we'll have to just not do it if he can't, because I won't have anybody. But Carolina-Seattle should be really good. This is always a tight matchup. It may not be very high scoring, but I think it's going to be fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
So, that being said, I think that does it for this week's show. Again, Randy has been feeling well lately. So, I don't know specifically what's going on. But, he's told me he's had some trouble sleeping and stuff like that. So,
yeah, I understand.
Hopefully, for the Monday show, he's ready and feeling better.
Definitely. We all need a break sometime,
Yeah, we all do. He goes hard, just like I do. I mean, he has another podcast that he does. He has a lot to do for that.
Yeah, and talk about that podcast. Randy does a great job, and him and his friend Wes have an awesome gaming podcast. And sometimes we don't get a chance to plug it a whole lot. We talk about it on here, but I mean, tell everybody about that podcast.
Yeah, this week they did a game called Long Live the Queen, Shadow of the Colossus, which is a classic PS2 game that has been done in HD format with ICO for the PS3. So, and I think it's only PS3 right now, but it's definitely one of those games that I think if you have a PS system, you should check out. It's one of those like games you should play. And I can't remember. I think Wes is doing Fallout New Vegas, which is the last Fallout that was made before Fallout 4, which comes out in less than a month now. So I'm sure people that are ready for that game are anticipating it hotly. So go check it out. They're available on iTunes, Stitcher. They're on 401 as well. So you can go check them out. I know we went a little shorter than we usually do, but I wanted to be even shorter, but we still hit a pretty good mark here. I think we got a little disoriented with what happened and everything. But
yeah.
That being said, we are doing the wrestling podcast here in a little bit. So if you're answering for us to hear us talk about New Japan King of Pro Wrestling and the Raw that happened and NXT and all the shows, and we'll be talking about all the big news and all that stuff too. The WWE signing. Too bad Randy's not on. I would have talked to him about it, but the big deal with the WWE and ESPN, a weekly WWE segment. I can't believe I'm here. I'm talking about that.
Wow.
Right now on ESPN. Big deal. We did not talk. Oh, we got to talk about this. I totally almost forgot. So I'm gonna have to make sure I make a note of this in the description. The Johnny Manziel thing. Apparently he had a little domestic argument with his girlfriend, and they were stopped by the police, and he made a note that he'd been drinking, which he's supposed to be. He went to a rehab for 10 weeks for that. And once you start drinking again, I mean, as somebody that's been around, people that have done this and drank and done drugs and whatever for, all it takes sometimes is one.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously he has a lot of motivation right now. With anything that happens to Josh McCown, he's supposed to be the next guy in line. And do you think that this could affect him negatively as far as like what the team thinks of him? Let's say the Browns lose a couple more games, and it's definite that they're not going to go anywhere, and it should be time for Johnny Manziel. Do you think that they just don't go with him if maybe this escalates? No charges are filed. The police said that everything's fine as far as with them. No charges are going to be filed because he wasn't over the limit or anything. But still, it's the whole point of it being out there that he's been drinking. Is this something that could be an issue down the line?
I think it's got to be a concern, especially if you're the Cleveland Browns organization, only because, Johnny Manziel has told them, and he's told the media that, hey, I've got a new outlook on this. I'm going to keep myself clean. I'm going to get serious. I'm ready to play football, and I don't want any distractions. And now here we go, a distraction. And especially when you add alcohol in the mix, I think the domestic dispute thing, everybody has arguments, and sure, the police can get called. But once you add the alcohol part, especially the part that, the team's already had troubles with him, that is a red flag. And for Johnny Manziel's sake, he needs to keep his, I hate to say nose clean, because that's almost like a bad reference.
I mean, let's talk about the incident here.
Yeah.
Apparently, he was driving at 90 miles an hour, which, number one, you shouldn't be doing. Number two, not to say that I'm the, person that drives the speed limit all the time. I have to drive 80 to go to work most of the time on the highway. But, it's whatever. We all got to do that sometimes. He was with his girlfriend. And this lady said that she saw them. She was trying to actually get out of the car while it was going 90 miles an hour. She's actually a TCU student, by the way. She apparently wanted to call somebody, and he wouldn't let her have her phone. So she threw his wallet out the window, and then he pulled the car over. They kept arguing, and then another person called the police. So.
Wow, that's a nice wallet to sure find. I'd be on the highways if I was in Cleveland.
Apparently, she was drinking too.
Yeah, I mean, both parties, but she's also not the one under the microscope here, and she's also not the one that's supposed to be a possible franchise quarterback for a team. So, I mean, not saying that she doesn't matter, but I mean, honestly, I mean, he's the one everybody's focused on because of the fact of his status. So, it's just a situation, a bad, sad situation that he's in right now, and I hope he does get through it. He's got an opportunity, and I'd hate for him to miss out on it because of his personal decisions.
Apparently, he did, I guess, grab her arm hard enough that she had an abrasion, and also apparently Manziel pressed her head against the car window, but she chose not to press charges. So.
Yeah, you can't do that kind of stuff. The NFL looks at that, and
I mean, this is one of those things where obviously alcohol again plays a deal here. When you're not in the right mind, you tend to do things that you wouldn't do otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, it being escalated into an argument, you get angry, you do things that again you don't do if you're just talking normally. So, this is one of those things that perhaps if he wasn't a football player, this is sort of like a thing that happens between a couple or whatever. Sometimes, I mean, look, you should never be hurting each other or whatever, but these things do happen in normal life. Just not, but this is being talked about because he's Johnny Manziel, so.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yes. It's a sad story, but once again, this is kind of new news, and we'll get more details as it, comes, and but I don't.
And prayers go out to Lamar Odom and his family and all that too. Thankfully, he's awake and breathing. But he has failed organs and all that kind of stuff. So even if he does, recuperate, he's got brain damage and all kinds of things. So it's gonna be really tragic for him moving forward if that's what happens. But hopefully, wish him the best. He, again, it's a sad situation with other things involved. So
exactly, I tell everyone all the time: there's two things in life that you got to stay away from, and that is alcohol and Kardashians.
I can't believe they were having that stupid argument about who should be going out to the media and talking and stuff. It's just
yeah.
But all right, that's enough for this week. We shall see you again, hopefully with all three of us, on the Monday night, Tuesday morning show. Till then, see you later, everybody.